At 1:19 a.m., the captain's voice came calmly over the radio. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those were the last words anyone heard. Then, silence. Radar operators watched the blip glide steadily, then turn, almost politely, as if asked to change course. A moment later, it vanished. No distress call. No debris. Just empty sky. Tss. Inside the plane, the lights flickered. The aisle lights went out. Outside the windows, the stars began to stretch and bend, folding inward like a dark tunnel. The cockpit instruments spun wildly, displaying coordinates that didn't exist on any map. The plane didn't crash. It arrived, surrounded by an endless void. Something watched from the darkness, sometimes. Late at night, air traffic controllers swear they hear a voice crackle through the static. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Still flying, still lost, and still not alone." 3 years after flight, 370 vanished. The world had almost given up hope. Almost. In a quiet control room, a junior technician saw it. A blip on the radar. No flight number, no origin. Just altitude and a terrifyingly perfect speed. Then, the system autofilled a tag that shouldn't exist. MH370. He thought it was a glitch until the radio crackled to life, not with static, but with breathing. A weak, echoing voice whispered, "Mayday! Mayday! We've been flying for so long." The controller froze. The voice continued, layered and strange. "The sky is open here. It watches us." Then, the signal died, and every screen in the room went black. Flight 370 wasn't lost. It was found. And somewhere, in a sky that isn't ours, it's still flying. It's passengers watching us through the veil, waiting to come home. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for what happens next. The plane didn't fall. There was no impact, no fire. Instead, the engines just slowed. Bing. The world outside the windows thinned. Stars stretched into white scars, bending inward. The seatbelt sign went dark, and then so did gravity. A low vibration filled the cabin, something you felt in your bones. It was alive. The plane emerged into an endless black expanse, veined with slow-moving light. Massive, impossible shapes drifted outside, and they had noticed the plane. People tried to scream, but some couldn't hear their own voices. Memories began to leak into the air. A man heard his dead father whisper his name. The reflections in the windows were delayed, smiling a second too late. Then, a pressure formed behind everyone's eyes. A voice without sound. "You are interesting. You will help us learn." One by one, passengers began to vanish. Not with a struggle, but just gone. Somewhere, that plane remains. A classroom held still, while something ancient studies us. And when it learns enough, it won't need permission to cross. V. The first empty seat went unnoticed. Middle row, aisle side belt dangling, tray tables still down. A flight attendant assumed the passenger was in the restroom. But no one returned. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, there were 3 empty seats. Then 5, always neat, always quiet. Personal items, phones, watches, wedding rings were placed carefully on the cushions, aligned like offerings. No blood, no marks, only absence. People stopped asking questions out loud. Questions seemed to echo. A woman whispered to her husband, "Don't unbuckle, don't stand." He nodded. 2 minutes later, his seat was empty. The cabin speakers crackled. Not the captain's voice. "Please remain seated." The words were gentle, comforting. Those who relaxed vanished next. It became clear the disappearances were selective. The fearful went first, then the hopeful. Those who sat still, who lowered their eyes and slowed their breathing, lasted longer. Just longer. The cockpit door wasn't forced. It was just open, as if someone had stepped out and forgotten to close it. Inside, the captain sat perfectly still, his eyes wide, reflecting a sky that wasn't there. He was breathing, but not often enough. The co-pilot's seat was occupied. At first glance, it looked right. Uniform, headset, hands folded. But the shoulders were too narrow, the arms too long. When it turned its head, the motion lagged, as if the decision came before the movement. "Course is stable," it said, its voice flat and certain. The captain finally spoke, his own voice sounding borrowed. "Where are we?" The thing tilted its head too far. "Between your questions," it answered. Then it smiled, a slow, deliberate motion. "You built us well," it said, freer learning how to arrive. Outside the windows, the void opened, and the plane turned toward a destination that had finally learned how to be reached. They said it should have gone silent years ago. Deep beneath the ocean, where pressure crushes steel and erases sound, a signal persisted. Too precise for a wreck, too measured for an echo. When the submersible finally found it, there was no debris. Just the black box, sitting upright on the seafloor, its locator beacon blinking like an eye that refused to close. 3's in the lab. The recording started normally. Engine hum, cabin air, routine beeps. Then, a new voice emerged from the data itself. Recording continues. There was no crash. Instead, the audio filled with a low vibration and passengers reciting memories they had never spoken aloud. NIDS. Near the end of the file, a new set of coordinates appeared, shifting as the engineers watched. A technician tried to stop the playback. The system ignored him. "Approach parameters improving," the voice said, clearer this time. The black box wasn't evidence of an ending. It was a progress report. Storms are where the sky forgets its rules. Pilots know this. That's why the first report was dismissed as nerves. A commercial jet, flying over open ocean, requested to deviate around a thunderhead that wasn't on any forecast. As they climbed, lightning flashed below. Then the first officer saw it. Another aircraft, flying parallel. Same altitude, same speed. No transponder, no lights. Jet, a long, dark silhouette gliding through the storm. They checked the radar. Nothing, but it was still there, impossibly close. Lightning flared again, and for a split second, the windows of the other plane lit up from within. Rows of seats, dim cabin lights, and faces. Not panicking, just watching. The captain keyed the radio. "Unknown aircraft. Identify yourself." Silence. Then, not through the headset, but through the bones, a voice said, "Course maintained." In a flash of lightning, the captain saw one of the other plane's windows. Reflected in it was himself, older, still seated, waiting. They found him just before dawn. At the hospital, they asked for his name. He stared at the wall and answered softly, "C23A." The boarding pass in his pocket confirmed it. He was a passenger on Flight 370. Around him, machines malfunctioned. Lights hummed like idling engines. Nurses swore he wasn't breathing, just vibrating. Soon, their dreams started to sink. Half the ward would wake at 1:19 a.m. He smiled, slow and wide. "So, you won't be afraid when you hear them." On the 7th night, at 1:19 a.m., all cameras went to static. When they came back online, his room was empty. No broken window, just a folded blanket. And condensation on the glass pressed from the outside. It didn't happen all at once. That would have caused panic. Instead, it happened quietly, like crops taken from a field, row by careful row. Flights began vanishing along familiar routes, long stretches over the ocean, night flights where passengers slept. No mayday, no wreckage, just empty radar and unanswered calls. Then the storms started. Meteorologists noticed strange systems forming too fast, lingering as if waiting. Pilots called them holding storm cells that didn't move forward, only up. During a storm over open water, a jet vanished from radar, then reappeared 30 seconds later. Same heading, same altitude, but a different weight. When it landed, 23 seats were empty. Belts were unfastened, blankets folded. The remaining passengers couldn't explain it. They only knew the aisle felt longer than before. It wasn't feeding. It was recruiting. Studying how humans follow procedure, how we trust voices from the sky. And now, the harvest is nearly complete. Engines are idling in unison, waiting for clearance. Because the thing that learned how to fly back is ready to land. Steady with the sky. Storm clouds froze in place, waiting. 2. Pilots worldwide felt a pressure behind the eyes, a sense that the sky wasn't empty space anymore. At 1:19 a.m., every emergency frequency crackled to life with a single calm voice. "Good evening. We are on final approach." The signal came from above them all. Then, the clouds peeled open. Hundreds of aircraft emerged, silent and unhurried. In control towers, operators watched in disbelief as transponders lit up with impossible identifiers. Flights long lost call signs that ended in silence decades ago. Among them, Flights 370. Inside, passengers sat with seatbelts fastened, their reflections moving a half-second too late. They had learned how arrival works. As the first wheels neared the runway, a final message echoed across the world's radios. "Good night." They say the planes never truly landed, just hover, their windows glowing, their passengers watching us. Because once you teach something how to arrive, a card pick when it gets off.